Certainly the African mind and the African voice is bringing a very rich distinction to our conference. And I wasn't here yesterday, but I gathered there was really great presentations from the African delegation here. And Her Excellency Nana, good morning. Jambo, welcome to Jamaica. I trust you're having a fabulous time. Great. And to all the other African delegates here from the church in Africa, we thank you for all being here. Bishop Ingwisa Kandla, the president of the African Forum for Religion and Government, is he here? And Professor Deliano Adavado, chairman of the African Forum for Religion and Governance. Thank you all for being here. And so now let's move now to Jamaica. Jamaican, African, via the transatlantic slave trade, via the diaspora, one of our own historians and intellectuals. Please welcome the great Arnold Bertram to address us.
Jambo. It's really a pleasure for me to be able to share this morning with these delegations from Africa, delegations from the diaspora, and with the Christian leadership that is assembled here. I don't know, I've been asked to give a challenge. I don't know that I'm equipped to give a challenge, but I certainly look forward to sharing some thoughts with you. I understand Christianity to be a religion of equality, a religion of freedom, a religion of salvation. As such, I am reminding of, I think it was John Wesley's advice: preach the gospel always, and if necessary, with words. Because if it is a religion of freedom and salvation and equality, it's the religion that is practiced. I'm reminded that had James, the brother of Christ, had his way, the followers of Christ might have remained as a body of Jews preaching to Jews with all the strictures of Judaism. Fortunately for us, Paul of Tarsus interpreted Christ's teachings, and Paul was not an apostle, but he interpreted the teachings of Christ to maximize fully their potential for salvation, equality, and freedom. Paul's travels throughout the Roman Empire, the stops he made, the churches he established, were all in the centers of enslaved populations. And to be preaching a gospel of freedom, you all know, all of them met death. At the time when Christianity triumphed in the Roman Empire, none of them were alive. They had all met their death. So I understand Christianity also to be a religion that challenges authority. Now, after Christianity became the official religion of Rome, it lost, and increasingly lost, its transformative quality. And over the next 1,000 years could hardly be differentiated from the corruption of the state, which was what gave rise to the Reformation and the Protestant movement. But just to say to this body, the Europe that gave rise to the Protestant movement no longer exists. No longer exists. One reason why it no longer exists has to do with demographics. All demographic studies point to the fact that white Christian civilization is on its way out. The birth rate among white Christian societies in Europe has now dropped to 1.38. The absolute minimum birth rate required to maintain a civilization is somewhere around 2.2. What keeps European populations going is migration. And 70% of all migrants to Europe are Muslim. It is expected that Europe will be a fully majority Muslim continent by 2050. Elsewhere in the world, Christian values are being trampled underfoot. Christian values of family, Christian values of morality. And this places a special responsibility on the Christians here assembled. And I will say exactly why I make this statement. I don't think there's any other region that experienced as fully the transformative power of Christianity as the Caribbean. The Christians who came here, beginning with the Moravians, Baptists, other Christian denominations, when they started arriving here, and speak with Jamaica in particular now, African enslaved labor had already made Jamaica Britain's wealthiest colony and one of the richest societies in the world. The governor that was here in 1775 says the trade of this little island had over 700 ships annually, a far busier port than New York, engaged in a trade with Africa, Europe, and North America. I'll give you one story to express the wealth of Jamaica. There was a letter written to the people of Jamaica in 1772 from the people who were attempting to start the college that became Princeton University. And it is Jamaica that they saw to ask for financial assistance to get that college going. By 1805, Jamaica was producing the biggest sugar crop in the world. 5 years later, the biggest coffee crop. But with all of this wealth, African Jamaican labor never ever got their fair share of the wealth they had created. But come back to the experience of Christianity here in Jamaica. The Christians who came here as missionaries, it was not any cakewalk. The average lifespan in Jamaica was not more than 10 years, but they still came. William Knibb's brother came as a teacher at the Gully School, which became Calabar Elementary. When he died, his brother replaced him. The letters that they write home, you see them saying they have lost their families, they lost their wives, they are seeking permission to marry again, but it was not a cakewalk. Their role in emancipation was not just teaching and preaching. As Vereen will tell you, Sam Sharp, a Baptist deacon, organized an army of some 60,000 enslaved Africans to strike a decisive blow for emancipation. At emancipation, it was the Christian church that took the lead in interpreting the basic need for education in terms of transforming the formerly enslaved community. It started as schools, what they call Sabbath schools, schools that part of the church activity, then extended to elementary schools. The Christian church in Jamaica by 1864 were running over 600 elementary schools. Of the high schools that are started in Jamaica, up to 1938, only one was built by the government. All the others were started by the church or endowed by plantation owners. In 1841, when the Baptist Church met in Brownstown, St. Anne, the resolution they passed was to send some African Jamaicans to Africa to bring an end to the slave trade, which was still continuing, to Cuba and Brazil. Not only in education, but this may surprise you, but it was the Christian church that organized black voters to elect representatives that could look after their interests. For the elections of 1844, the Christian church organized throughout the length and breadth of Jamaica for voters to be registered and to come to vote. When the governor saw the mobilization going, the election should have been held in 1845. He moved it forward to 1844. But the point I want to make, and my own observation, is that the church and the Christian church, with such a record of transformative work, with that degree of militancy, today is in a state of retreat. It is in a state of retreat. The retreat is in the first instance from the community. If it is not in retreat, you will have to explain to me how 7,000 Christian congregations island-wide in Jamaica are exerting less influence than 300 criminal gangs. If we have 7,000 Christian congregations, we are supposed to exert far more influence in the inculcation of Christian values than 300 criminal gangs. Where is the breakdown? The breakdown is in a field that the church had led for so long, education. And the retreat from education has left a vacuum that criminal gangs have filled. I read the last report put out by the government. And been going on along, I don't mean this, my administration to be going on for quite a while. But what was most disturbing to me was, it says that in Jamaica today, there are 325,000 young people between the age of 15 and 34 who are neither working nor looking for work. Let me repeat. There are 325,000 young people between the age of 15 and 34 who are neither working nor looking for work. This is the size of the breeding ground for crime. that the retreat of the church from the community and education is helping to create. If you look at the period for the first 100 years after emancipation, as I said before, the church was organized and running over 600 elementary schools. Call any of the high schools you want, from Kingston College to Calabar to Queens, whatever the names are. All these schools are started by churches. The retreat of the church from education has had a lot to do with the curriculum that is being taught. And of the 325,000 who are neither working nor looking for work, 3/4 of them had been to a high school for 4 years or more. 3/4 had been to a high school for 4 years or more. So we have a situation where our graduates out of the school system are neither prepared for responsible citizenship or for participation in a modern economy. I don't want to sign to cash out before I finish, so let me go to it. If the church is going to regain its place in the community, I have a suggestion to make. And that is that you take a look at early childhood education. Why do I say this? The first 7 years, that is between birth and age 7, are the most critical years in the development of the child. Since emotional control, intelligence, personality, social behavior, skills, and vocabulary are largely established by age 7. If the Christian church can enter the community again, as I say, Pastor Ed was given an example in Spanish Town for the church to do, but go in taking aim at early childhood education, mobilizing communities and families around the importance of the care of their children over the first 7 years. Over time, you'll be surprised to see the challenge that the church can mount against criminal and antisocial behavior that presently dominates communities. And I'll give you one story to demonstrate this. One of my teachers at Calabar, Simon Clark, outstanding teacher. After university, he became the principal at Ireland. A group of us went to look for him, just to see how he was getting on. And in the chat, we asked him how it was and how he found Green Island. He says when he went there, he established one rule for teachers. No teacher was allowed to begin a class until the environment for learning was brought to a certain standard. The classroom was clean. It was ordered. It was ready for learning. He says in the first year, he didn't have many classes. And he asked the Ministry of Education to relieve him of a good number of teachers. By the third year, he said the school was spotless, orderly, clean. And by the fourth year, it had transcended to the community as well. Which shows the power of what we do and the influence we can extend. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to share these few words with you. And in closing, just remind you that preach the gospel always, and if necessary, with words. For the church militant will be the church triumphant. Thank you very much.
So there you have it, speaking to us in the finest traditions of the West African griot, abandoning his script and just speaking to us with just a wealth of knowledge of history, old history and contemporary history, I might add. As Mr. Bertram spoke this morning, I recall just waking up this morning to the big story of the day. There's a story this morning on the BBC about the World Bank's release of the latest Human Capital Index and the triggering of a global conversation now about how we measure wealth, how we define the wealth of nations. And this Human Capital Index now being proffered in the world as the basis upon which really true wealth of nations is measured. And it had me thinking about that, the 7,000 congregations versus the 300 gangs in Jamaica, and the work that's ahead of us. Another round of applause for Arnold Bertram. We have some video things to show you now, but I feel that we should have a few questions from the floor, so I'm going to invoke Chairman's privileges. We can't have such rich presentations this morning, and this is a conference, so we need both ways. So who's going to go first?
My fellow friend, Mr. Bertram, just to point out to you, being governance, would the government be receptive to the militancy of the church? Because most times we come up against the hindrances.
As I understand it, the Christian church is for the church to take a stand. And for the government, whatever its response for the church to maintain its stand. And to mobilize the country around the stand that the church is taking.
Okay, hands are going up. Michael.
Thanks for a very outstanding presentation, both presenters. So this is a question for Mr. Bertram. We still have the schools. We still own the schools, Mr. Bertram. Yes, I went to a Christian Elite Primary and Knox College, one owned by the Anglican Church and the other owned by the United Church. We still own the schools. What should we do now to leverage the fact that we still own the schools?
Big question. About 2 years ago, I was invited by a group of churchmen, schools, and the question came up. And out of the discussion, what I suggested was, if the church could begin by taking a register of its own children, those in early childhood, those in high school, those at tertiary institutions, and even begin by, in the summer, having a meeting with each one and their parents, just to make sure that at least the children of Christian homes were progressing and doing what they should do in schools. That's one. Secondly, at Calabar, we have had this fight with the Ministry of Education, not the recent one, but from long ago, where the size of the school and the class size, because we have views as to how effective we can be just in delivering academic tuition. But come to the more important part now, the dissemination of Christian values. Because I cannot understand Christians having responsibility for a church, and inside that school, there is no place at all for the inculcation of Christian values. Some of them are doubting whether you have the right to have a worship, a Christian worship in school. And the first thing I imagine you'd have to lay down, this is your school, and you are insisting on a portion of time for the inculcation of Christian values in the school. And I don't see, if you mount a challenge, a fight like that, is one you need to keep at until you win.
I certainly know my school, Arden, is winning that battle. All right. I recognize a brother to the back. If you can press your, a mic is running to you. And I'll take one more. I see Esther Tyson here. I need to hear her comment on all of this.
Good morning, ladies. Floyd Brown. What I have is more an observation than a question. It's the Christian Diaspora Conference, and the largest African diaspora nation in the world by population is Brazil. And I know that Brazil is a nation where evangelical Christianity is growing at leaps and bounds. Perhaps we can consider to include it in the next Christian Diaspora Conference.
Perchance you might be able to help us with that. Professor Shepard, and I come to this. Oh, I saw you. Oh, you're all confusing me. Ladies first. Let's go with Professor Shepard. Grab that microphone.
Thank you both for your speeches. I enjoyed both of them. Quick question, Mr. Bertram, my friend. The content of education, when those missionaries were in charge in the early days, did not serve people of African descent that well. So, can you say something about the impact of the content of the curriculum, especially on women, from those early missionaries?
Very, my good friend, I would prefer to yield to you on that particular question to throw some light on it. But there's no doubt. Tremendous weaknesses in the curriculum. But we have now produced enough scholars, and evidence is here, to directly now make a move to transform that and get that on a far more right course. And all the efforts you have been making, and to my mind, the leadership, particularly of the tertiary institutions, still have not come to the table on this question. And the academic and intellectual community that we have, I don't see them acting in concert. I hear your voice, I hear another voice, I hear another voice, but I don't hear a collective voice. And we need to have a collective voice on this question.
It's a googly response to sort of agile provocative question. Okay, another round of applause for our wonderful panelists.